Okay, I will continue to isolated environments with renv. And why would you use an isolated environment? Well, it solves some problems. You can install some specific versions into them, also older versions than what are available at the center. You can create one for each of your projects, and then you can just switch between them and easily make sure that you are consistent. And it doesn't matter if two projects require different versions. You can easily remove an environment and create a new one if you don't need it or if there's some problem with it. Many people don't use virtual environments in R because it's not actually very well known, but there is the renv package, and that is a somewhat new effort to bring this local dependency management to your projects in an easier way. And it's supposed to be a robust, stable replacement for the packrat package. So in this session, I will look at how to work with isolated R environment at ASP.C2N, UPPMAX, and LUNARC. And I will first give a very general introduction to what isolated environments in R are. And then I'll show an example of how you install an R package to an isolated environment. So hopefully you will learn to do that, and there will be an exercise for you to try. So what is the general procedure? Well, you have probably or maybe been in a situation where you have different projects that use different versions of R and also different versions of packages. And that could well happen. And you easily solve dependencies and things like this with isolated environments. So an isolated environment in R, just like in Python, means that you create separate workspaces for different versions of R and for different versions of packages. And you can then activate or deactivate one at a time. And just like in Python, you can work as if the other one does not exist. So it will help you to manage library paths and other project-specific states and help you to isolate your project's R dependencies. And any other existing tools you have for managing R that should work as it did before. And there is a text here where there is more information about renv. But what is the workflow? First, after, of course, loading R, you call and starting R. Load and start R. So maybe we should do this. I have R loaded. Good. Then I'm going to start R. And I should actually also create a project for it. So I'm going to go out and do that. Oh. Okay, I will create a project directory to work with. And I will call it r.proj. I will go into r.proj. I will start R. And then I will call this command here, renv : init. And I will do that from inside of R. It initializes the new project local environment. And it takes a little while. Okay. And you work inside this project as normal. You can install and remove R packages just as they are needed in the project. And if you want to save the state of it, you can use renv : snapshot. And it will save the state of the project library to a log file that you can find out in the file tree called renv.log. You can now continue working on your project. You can install and update R packages as you need, and then again save it with renv snapshot each time you do that. And you can also use renv restore to revert to a previous state. So And this renv init function that attempts to ensure that the newly created project library, the one we just created here, will include all the R packages that currently are used by the project. And it will crawl the R files in the project for dependencies with a function called renv dependencies. Okay, I will go down here because we don't have that much time. So let's do a type along. And first you create a project directory, just like I did here, r._project. You can put it wherever you want to. I suggest that if you're on ASP.C2N or UPPMAX, you put it in the project directory. That's here on UPPMAX. On ASP.C2N, it's here. And on LUNARC, it's in your home directory. You have, I assume, already created a directory for yourself under the project directory, or else if you're on LUNARC, you're working in your home directory. Create a project directory for this called r_project, and then change to it. This command, by the way, means that it creates this directory and it changes to this directory. You can also just do it in two goes. I mean, first create it, then change to it. Then make sure you have loaded the things you need, R and R packages on UPPMAX, R and R bundle bioconductor, maybe R bundle CRAN if you use something new on ASP.C2N, and just R on LUNARC. Then launch the R interpreter and initialize an R environment. I just did this here. Then let's exit the session. And then I will check and show you that this rn directory exists. Well, you always see that, but let's do this. So you can see it has the log file I mentioned before. It has created a rn directory. And let's go into renv and just show what is there. And there are several files. There's Activite. There is the library where it will install stuff and things like this. So it looks like you would expect it to. Good. I will go back one and then I will start R again. Like this. I will now see what my lib paths are. And you can see it has now actually added this project storage R project library that I have now created. So that is added, and you also have this one here. So everything is within your R project. And well, what happens if you leave the project directory? Does anyone know? Okay. If you leave the project directory, you are no longer in the virtual environment or the R environment. So you need to be inside of that when you're installing stuff. So let's try and install something to this rnv. And I'm going to try and install Knitter. And then it will tell you if it needs any prerequisites. And I am going to say yes to this. And then it's installing it. And you can see that went quite fast. And if I now exit R, and then let's check what is here inside of the renv. It would now have one for this R version and for this architecture. And you can see there is quite a lot of stuff installed here, and that is one for each of these. I should just make this a little bit longer so you can easier see what's going on. There's one for each of the packages that it installed. And yes, you can see they are actually just symbolic links to my home directory, because that's where I had told R to install stuff earlier. And you may not want that, because it will use the limited space in your home directory. And you can change that by doing use.cache false in the settings file, or you can set random path cache to someplace else. For instance, the rlibs site, and that might be a good idea to do, but it's not important right now because you're only going to install small things. And then note another thing: if you want to access the packages that you now installed in this rproj directory, by the way, you can of course call it what you want. This is just a mnemonic. You will either need to activate it or be located in that directory. And you load the R module and the prerequisites, and then you do this here from inside your R script. And then you can access the packages installed in it, or you run from inside your rn directory. And this is important if you are doing a batch script. So you will be able to use your R environment in a batch script. And there is an exercise for you here where you can try and install Daterium. And we will need this for an exercise in machine learning with R section. And that is only on Cosmos and Kebnekaise. If you're on Rackham, you don't need to, because that library already exists there. For this exercise, you need to use 421 on both Kebnekaise and Cosmos. So do module purge. I will type that here so you can see it. Module purge removes all modules you have loaded. If you can do this also on Rackham just to try it, but you would do module load. You will module load 421 on Kebnekaise and on Cosmos, and 411 on UPPMAX. Let's see how you load 421. And to do that, you need these modules. So let me load that. And that you have already loaded if you're on Cosmos. So now when you have done that, launch the R interpreter and initialize an RENV environment, just like shown above, and then install the package Daterium. And I'm not going to talk much about Conda, except to say that if you are on UPPMAX, it is possible to use Conda instead to create a virtual environment. And you would do that by using a YAML file that you could, for instance, call r_environment YAML that looks like this. And if you have worked with Conda before, you will know that you will then module load Conda and then use Conda to create the environment, and you can install to it then. But if you want to use Conda, you can read through this. The idea here is to learn how to use RENV. So with a virtual environment, you can tailor your environment with specific versions for R and packages without interfering with other versions. And you need to make a project, make one for each of your projects if you want to have reproducibility, if you want to make sure that you use only what you need for that. UPPMAX and LUNARC have Conda as an alternative. for renv. HPC2N only has renv. But try to create an renv, go and see what files get created in the directory, then try install the Deuterium to it so that we can use it later for an exercise. So take 5-10 minutes, and we will have lunch break afterwards. So if you want, you can also have lunch break now and then do the exercise when you come back.